Everything that we're doing here with this, all the things you should have learned in real estate school is every other week we're going to be doing some kind of topic, um, in real estate, but the stuff that nobody ever taught us. And so we got to go out and find it on our own, and hopefully it falls in our lap and all that kind of stuff. And so that's what this is all about. And all right. So the point of this, though, when we're in these sessions, is that it's participatory. I think that's a word. Like we want you, the people who are here, to engage, to ask questions, to whatever. There will be lots of opportunities for you to chime in and that kind of stuff. So I just want to make that clear that at no time are you stepping on toes. If you're like, hey, I got a question or I want to add to that, please chime in. This is meant to be a community of people coming together, sharing ideas so that we can all be better. So with that, I am going to just jump in here. And actually, before I do, I would like to ask you guys. So the title of this session is How to Do a CMA. So there's a few different components to this. It's one thing to learn how to do a CMA, nuts and bolts, step one, two, three, how to do a CMA. It's another thing to understand how to leverage a CMA and leverage the time that you're putting into it to actually generate more business. And so I'd like to ask you right out of the gates, feel free to unmute, you can raise your hand or whatever. Would you prefer to spend more time on the actual nuts and bolts of how to do a CMA? Put a one up if that's you. Or would you rather spend more time figuring out how to leverage it to generate more business? That's a two. And if you're like, I don't care, wave your hand. I don't know. Doesn't matter. All right. I got a two. Allison doesn't care. Rachel. Okay, cool. One, two. All right. So it sounds like we got a pretty solid mix here. So, all right, cool. So we will do both, and I'll just kind of keep it short and succinct. But I'm also going to, today, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you guys like the actual emails that I'm sending out to people so that you can see exactly what it looks like when I'm sending these to people. I'll show you actual examples of the CMA report that is created through Cloud CMA, which is a paid service through our MLS. If you're planning on utilizing this strategy, I would highly recommend getting Cloud CMA. It's not that expensive. I want to say it's like 300 and something bucks a year or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. So I would recommend using it. And yeah, so I'll show you all of that, everything. And then when we send the follow-up email at the end of this, I'll give you access to all of that. So I'll send you like a spreadsheet with a blank CMA Excel spreadsheet where I track all my CMAs and the values for years and years and years. So you'll have all of that. So before we get into it, any questions or anything that you guys want to make sure that we cover today? Outside of that, I guess I should say. All right, cool. Well, let's just jump right in. So, all right, CMAs, the bane of real estate agents' existence. At least if I had to make a guess, that's what I would assume it is because it is like pulling teeth to get real estate agents to do CMAs. And yet, still, 15 years later, it is the number one lead generation source for my business to this day. And yet, I'm one of very few, I think, in real estate who still do them on a regular basis. And so I just want to start out by saying, why? Why are CMAs valuable? Why should you even care? Why should you be doing them? How can you utilize them? So just kind of the basics foundation around it. So I know they're boring, I know they're dry and all of that kind of stuff. So let's just push that to the side. Um, so first of all, why do they work in terms of being able to generate more business? I think the simplest answer to that is value. You're providing value. You can provide value in a lot of different ways in your business, right? You can take people out to lunch and coffee. You can call them on a regular basis, check in, throw parties, all of these kinds of things that you can do to add value. But at the end of the day, what demonstrates your value, not only as a friend or as a family member or just a fellow human or whatever, what demonstrates that providing value and demonstrates your ability to be a good real estate agent at the same time. If you have another one, seriously, please tell me. But the only one I've found that does both of those things at the same time, oh, and by the way, creates an opportunity to ask for a referral directly. So it does all of those things. So why would we not be doing these on a regular basis? And when I say regular basis, I mean like 2 or 3 a week. That's it. I'm not talking 90. When I was doing, 40 deals a year, I was doing like 4 to 5 of them a week. That was a lot. You don't have to do that many. 2 to 3 a week will work, and will help. And so once again, if we're going to be successful in real estate, it's the biggest hurdle, or I guess what we really need to do if we want to make more money in real estate, we need to make sure people know, like, and trust us. And that means we need to provide value. And so we need to constantly be looking at our business. How am I adding value to these other people so that when the time comes, they think about me? Not how do I make sure they know I'm in real estate? That's like step one. Adding value is varsity level. That's when you go to the next level. We start adding value in different ways. And CMAs is a great way to do that. So, how do we leverage this to actually generate more business? So, once again, I'll go through this whole process, but 10,000-foot view. So, um, you do the CMA. And by the way, I do these every year for my list of clients. When I was really, really pushing, I had like just under 300. It was like 290 people on my CMA list. So that's how many CMAs I was doing every single year. So that's a lot. And now I'm down to about, I'll have to pull it up. I think I'm at like 125 or something like that. So I really whittled down my list to the people that, you know, that, that I want to connect with. And those are the people that I do the CMAs for. But every single year I track what their value is. So let me just quick caveat here. Back up your Excel sheet, please. I lost like 7 or 8 years of consecutive data for a 300-person database. Gone. I didn't do CMAs again for 2 years. It was painful. I was like, screw this. I'm not rebuilding this thing. I'm out. And my business went whoop. So back it up. Have it in a couple places. So if you lose it, you don't lose it because that's really painful. So anyway, so you do this CMA and you send it to them. And because you have a running track record of what they've been at every year, you can be like, oh, last year you were at this year you're at this. So now you can compare notes and be like, hey, your house is stable or, right now, or it's maybe went down just a little bit, or maybe it's up or whatever. You have some kind of reference point. But anyway, you now have something of value that you can provide to them. And when you send this to them through emails, how I do it, um, even if they don't reply, I guarantee you, like nearly 100% of them are opening them and they're looking at it. And at the bottom of your email, you say, by the way, I know you have no plans of moving anytime soon, but if you happen to hear of anybody thinking about buying or selling, would you do me a huge favor and throw my name out there or do a three-way introduction or whatever? You're asking for a direct referral. It's that simple. And yes, it will take you a couple hours every week. But who here would be willing to trade 2 hours a week for an extra 5 deals this year? Right. So far, we're halfway through this year. Neil helps me with my CMAs now. Neil, how many CMAs have we done? Probably so far this year, 40,
Yeah,
50.
a lot,
Yeah.
definitely.
But I have generated at least 5 new transactions out of those. Sent it out, didn't hear from them for a week. They call me back and say, hey, we watched your video. We're actually thinking about moving. Can you help us? It works. It works and nobody does it. So get off the soapbox on that. Let's get into the nuts and bolts. Any questions on any of that or thoughts or anything that you would add to the conversation on that front?
I'm I'm curious. I've never done a CMA. How long does a CMA take to do?
So I would actually like everybody else to chime in here. At this point, I can knock out. It depends. If I'm doing a CMA for a listing appointment, it's different than if I'm doing a CMA for like this purpose. Because if it's for a listing appointment, like I got to make sure I'm super dialed in. So for that, I'll probably spend 30 to 40 minutes on it. For just a regular CMA, I'll probably spend about 15, like 20 max if it's a difficult one. What about you guys? What are you seeing?
I would agree about 15, 20 max.
Yeah.
And pretty spot on with all my numbers. And man, it goes long, like way when you're meeting with clients, makes you like the professional. Here's my opinion. Here's the comps of the area. That's number two. I mean, you got to have comparable market analysis is what CMA stands for. And it brings in the appraiser, it brings in your real estate professional aspect of it. Yeah, I would say it's a huge thing to use. What programs do you use, Dan?
So I'll go through that, but really all I use Excel to track my database for the
Okay,
CMAs. And then I use Cloud CMA for the actual report.
groovy.
And then I also use Zoom to shoot a video that I send them with my breakdown because I got tired of typing it all out. So I just started shooting. I'll show
My
you how.
boy, high tech, your tech.
Yeah, right, right. Thank you, Will.
Cool.
Anyone else? How long they take you?
I do about 15 minutes and I do Jackie's version.
Okay, cool.
What version's Jackie's version? Sorry, I just got here.
Um, it's short and sweet is the best way I can
Yeah,
describe
Jackie. So
it.
Jackie, please go ahead here in just a second. Go through your version 10,000 foot view because it's another way of doing it. So keep in mind that my way of doing this is my way of doing this. I've developed this over the last 15 years. I've found that it works for me. But take what I'm doing today and make it your own. Because Jackie's like, she's like, I'm not going to do it the way you do it, Dan. I'm going to do it my way, and that's great. So Jackie, what do you do?
I have set up in RE Colorado, or actually every MLS that I'm part of, a saved search. And so basically, I will take the property, I will just do a general search, and I'll do a mile radius from their address. I will do like comparable homes, ranch to ranch, two-story to two-story, that stuff, condos, townhomes, whatever. And then I will put in the above range, the range for the above square footage, total square footage, and finished square footage. So I'll have it all completely set up. I then save that as a real estate review, which is not necessarily a CMA because, in my point of view, a CMA is when you're doing adjustments and you're looking at that data. This is more just a market analysis of similar homes. You can call it a CMA if you want to. But I have every single client set up in this kind of search. And when I want to go do this, just like when Dan said, every single year, I try and do mine quarterly, or whenever I think about somebody, I'll send them something. But I do a quick CMA, and I print that out and I write on it and I say, hope all is well. If you have any questions with this, let me know, whatever. So I make it very simple, and it takes me less than 5 minutes because the search is already set up. I print it out, I mail it off, and I can do 16, 20 of them in a day
Right.
with that
So,
system.
so yeah, it's a totally different system, right?
Yes.
And so, you're incorporating handwritten notes and those kinds of things, which are valuable for a different reason. Mine's a little bit different. I'm going much deeper, but I only do it once a year because that's all I have time for. And people really like the video. So it's not that either one of us is right or wrong. It's just that there's different ways of doing it. The point is these work because you're providing value, demonstrating your expertise, and it's a great opportunity to ask for a referral. That's why it works. And because it's painful, most people won't do it. Set yourself apart. Be a value add to your people. That's why they hire you, right? They're not going to hire you if they don't trust you, if you're not adding value to them. They hire you because you add value to their life. This is a very relationship-based business, and this helps build that relationship. All right, cool. So let's just dive in here. I'm going to share my screen here. And I'm just going to show you really quick how I do my CMA, kind of my thought process when I'm putting it together.
Better to have two-factor authentication than someone breaking into your account, dog.
This is true. This is true. All right. Cool. So let's see here. All right. So you guys see the MLS window there? Yep. Okay. So I use RE Colorado. I'm not part of any other ones, but so search residential. All right. Anybody have a property that you want me to run a CMA on?
I do.
I can give you one.
I do.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
You guys go ahead.
I have a new listing, 4525 West 10th Avenue.
Yay, congrats.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the total square footage of it?
Small, it's 8. Hold on. 814, I believe. Let me pull up my realist report from yesterday.
It's a ranch.
Yes,
That's just a whittle guy.
it's tiny.
But it's a single family home.
Single family home. 2 bed, 1 bath.
Okay. You said 815 square footage?
Yeah, I think it's 814, but yeah.
So, all right. So here's what I do for this. This is all I add for my CMA. You know, Jackie said she might add the living finished square footage and those kinds of things. She might add that it's a ranch versus a 2-story and all that kind of stuff. So for me, I only do that if I've got too much data and I need to like, close it down a little bit. Otherwise, especially right now when there's just not as much data, I want to keep that window as open as possible. So I know in Highlands Ranch, if I'm looking at a 2-story house and there's a ranch style house, I know that those are not apples to apples. So I have to make an adjustment in my own head, the difference between those. And I'm only going to include that ranch style home if it's like one of the only comps that has a lot of the other things that are the same. So it's also a 3-car garage that backs up to open space, and none of the other ones have those. I might throw the ranch in there just to add a little bit more info. But I do try to go like to like. I just don't reduce my search on the front end to that. So I do active, coming soon, pending, closing in the last 6 months. I do check the single family residence or condo or townhome or whatever, so I don't get, all that stuff in there. And then I try to do, 10 to 15% adjustment on the size. So I might even take this up to 1,000. That's, from 800 to 1,000, 200 square feet. If you think about that, that's the size of a 1-bay garage. That's pretty substantial, right? So I try not to go more than 20% because this one's so small. I wonder if it might pull some more data in. But actually, I'm going to start with 950 and see what we get. All right. So, as how far out do I go? It varies. So it really depends on, the area and all of that kind of stuff. So you need to know what streets you can cross in what areas and what streets you can't cross. And by the way, here's another advantage of doing CMAs. The more you do these, the more you're going to become familiar and you're going to start looking at stuff going, wait, why is that pocket so different from this pocket over here? And you'll start to realize, oh, the architecture is different. Oh, they were built in different years. Oh, these houses are right next to 6th Ave. If anybody knows Sheridan and 6th Ave, these homes right along the highway are different than these homes up here. And so you got to kind of know what's going on. I would say you can include all of this over here, you've got a nice little box right here with plenty of data. So I would keep it inside the box. If you have to go over big streets like Sheridan, 6th Ave, Federal, something like that, that's fine, but only do it if you absolutely have to. So the first thing that I'm going to do is in today's market specifically, first thing I'm going to look at, how many active listings are right next to this property? You got one, two, whoops, three, four, five, six, just in this little area. And then you've got one pending. Oh, no, it's not pending. I thought it was pending. So you got six, count this one, seven active listings with 0 pending. So that's something that I'm going to mention in my video when I shoot this because I want them to know what's actually happening in the market. You know, they need to recognize that it's not 2020 anymore. You've got all this active inventory with nothing pending. That has an impact on the value of your home, or at least the sellability of your home. Yeah, Rob, you had a question?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. For your 20%, is that plus or minus 10 on either side, or
Yeah.
plus or minus 20 on either side?
I kind of go 10%. So
Okay.
say it's 3,200 square feet. Okay, 10% would be 300. So instead of going 300 from 3,200, I'm going to go 300 from 3,000. Right? I'll just kind of round up. So it opened it up in the window just a little bit more. So it's maybe like 12, 13%. Right? And then
Okay.
I'll go from 3,200, I'll go to 35 and add 300 to that. So I might go 38.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's an imperfect science. And by the way, this one of the reasons appraisers drive me crazy is not even appraisers themselves, but just this idea that appraisals are like gospel. It's somebody else's opinion. They come to their valuation in a different manner, but at the end of the day, it's an opinion. You know what the house is worth? Whatever you're willing to pay for it. That's what it's worth. So we're just kind of putting our opinion on this. So then what I'm going to do, first, now I'm going to just kind of go through the neighborhood and I'm going to look for prices. So what you can see here is everything's in a super tight window. Thank you, Rachel. You picked a good one. Everything's in a super tight window, which makes it really easy. So we know we're maxing out in the 500s. The lowest one I saw was 220. Notice it's right up against the highway. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath. So I'm going to look at the low end. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bookend it. Low, high. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one in the middle and I'm going to see how it relates to my property. So if my property is, say, nicer than the one in the middle, then I'm like, okay, great. So it's probably somewhere between the middle and the high end. And then I'm just going to continue to narrow it down until I'm like, okay, it falls somewhere here on the spectrum. That's how I come up with my valuation. So 220, I'm imagining this one's, 720 square feet, 2-bed, 1-bath. No concessions. This is another thing you need to look at is concessions down at the bottom. If you don't know where it's at, it's right here. So you always want to look at concessions. So listed at 229, took 9 days to sell, sold for 220 cash. Okay, cool. I'm guessing this one needs less work than I thought. I mean, it definitely needs to be updated, flipped, but it's not as bad as I thought. What's the condition of your property, Rachel?
Not good. So this is an issue. So one, we're right across the street from a school. So I usually deduct 10% for that. And also when I was looking yesterday, so the prices that you were seeing, like the 410 and the 399, 389, all of those are in significantly better shape than this one. This one has a pretty significant crack throughout the back of the house that I think that there's some structural issues going on. This one in particular is the one that I think is closest to the current house.
I thought you said it was beat up. This one looks like it has some updates.
Well, so here's the thing. The inside of the house is actually pretty nice. It's got original hardwood floors that are in decent shape. It's got marble countertops in both the bathroom and in the kitchen. It's got some newer appliances, but there is a really significant crack that is almost the entire length of the back of the house that looks structural to me.
Horizontal?
Yeah,
Yeah, it goes this way.
Yeah, that's a bummer. All right. So, how much does that impact value? I don't know. I do know that those repairs can be expensive, so you can try to back out the cost of those repairs, plus add another 15% to it, 15, 20% to the cost of those repairs for somebody that's willing to take it on, maybe more. That's how I would kind of extrapolate out what that's going to, how that's going to hurt the property. Once again, it's an imperfect science. So, if we're looking at this property and we're like, okay, 415 is the best comp. Okay, great. So we know it's somewhere in this 415 range. Now we got to start making adjustments. So the other thing that we need to look at here, by the way, is we're always going to want to look at days on market. So this one was 35 days and concessions, 10K and concessions. So 415 isn't 415. 415 is 405. So we need to really be careful and make sure we're always checking concessions, especially in today's market. They're very common. But this one sold in 35 days. So they listed it at 430, then they did a price drop to 421, and then it went under contract real quick. So if you want to look at the history, just in case you didn't know this, there's a history tab. So they dropped it in January after 3 weeks or so, and then it went pending about 3 weeks later once they dropped it. So the history tab is down under the picture if you didn't know where that was. So here's what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing here, but I'll just kind of touch on a few more. So we don't care about active listings outside of how long have they been sitting on the market. So we got 57 days. That one's priced at 380. And you look at this one and it's like weird. It's updated, but it's weird. That's why this one's not selling. Gosh, that is weird. No garage. So that one's been 57 days. So I'd look at a couple of these and we're like, okay, so in the high threes now, you've got all these properties starting at 400. They're dropping down into the high threes, sitting on the market for 3, 4, 5 months. Very similar. This one actually has a one-car detached garage and it's at the upper threes and it's not bad and it's not selling. So now I'm looking at the discrepancy between what the sold data was telling me in the spring and what the active data is telling me today. The active data is telling me that 385 isn't going to cut it. There's too much active inventory. So even though the house that you have, Rachel, is as nice as say this one, let's just assume it is. They're similar in every way except for the crack. Well, we know 385 isn't going to cut it. So you can start at 425 and work your way down just like everybody else and spend 6 months on the market and then get beat up, down the line because your house has been on the market for 6 months and now they smell blood in the water and they're like, sweet, I bet we can get an even better deal. And now you get less than you would have if you just started at 350 to begin with. So, and I'm not saying that's exactly where the price is. I would dive into this a little bit more if we had more time. But that's my hunch is somewhere in that 350 range without seeing the property because everything else is in that 385 range. You got one at 340. Let's see what this one looks like. Been on the market for 88 days, started at 350. So once again, no guarantee that that's going to sell. 800 square feet, 2-bed, 1-bath, no garage. So seems to me this one might be pretty similar. You tell me, Rachel.
Yeah, definitely. The layout's very different, but yeah, I mean, like I said, the inside of this particular house is actually not in bad shape. It's the outside that I'm very concerned about.
Right. So that one is what gives me the most pause. That one's at 340. And I'm looking at that going, that should have sold, but it didn't. So I don't know if there's some other circumstances here that are stopping it from selling. Maybe the layout is really funky and that could be affecting it, but that's one that I would have thought would have sold by now. So now you're like, oh man, okay, so we're at 350 without a foundation crack, maybe. And then we've also got the foundation crack. Where do you start? So this is how the process works. It's
But
not an exact science. It's about bookends. It's about we're above this and below this, above this and below this, above this and below this. And you just kind of move those bookends in until you come to a value somewhere in the middle. And I never give them a value. I always give them a range. You're somewhere between 325 and 350. If you were going to list today, I would suggest starting at 329.9 or whatever. That's how I would present it to people, especially if they're not moving. Obviously, if they are listing their house, it's a little bit different conversation. Yeah,
you
Rob?
guys,
Oh, go ahead,
sorry,
Rob.
you guys also do the 10%, like take 10% off if it's across the street from a school or a church?
Um, that's a
Christian,
good question.
no.
We can open that up to everybody. I don't 10% is pretty hefty. Some people like being across from schools. I think you do have to take it into consideration, but there's a lot of factors that play into that. Is it a middle school, an elementary school, or a high school? Is it in the drop-off lane or is it just close to it? So for example, we were renting an Airbnb while our kitchen was being renovated. It backed up to the middle school, which wouldn't have been ideal if I was buying a house, but at the same time, I had a giant field behind the house. So that was kind of cool. And it wasn't in the drive lane. So that was okay. So
I think it depends on the neighborhood also. Like in our neighborhood, being by the school is a massive like increase because the school is a really great school. So, and people want to walk to school. So it just depends on that neighborhood. And I would talk to neighbors and see what the traffic's like. For me, my house is right across from a school and it's 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon during the school year. That's a booger. But the community is amazing because the school is here.
Okay, that's good to know. I've always deducted, but that's good information.
it really depends on are you at the front of the school, back of the school, side of the school, what type of school, how are the kids in the neighborhood, and how is that impacting it, right? Are they running around and painting the backs of people's houses, or are they just like cool kids, right? It all plays into it. You really got to understand the neighborhood, and you can even ask your client, "Tell me more about the school. How does it impact your life?"
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, Rob.
And then you're skewed if you've been a teacher. Okay. So
Exactly.
hey, so how do we price things like a crack? Do you bring in professionals? Do we ask amongst our friends, hey, can you get a quick estimate, or is this something that you've got to bring three people in and get a whole bunch of estimates? I'm just curious on that piece.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm not an expert in foundation stuff. What I will say is typically, if you look above doorways and you see a hairline crack that goes straight up, that's usually a drywall seam. Not always, but usually. If you see cracks that go diagonal, that's usually foundation shifting. If there's major shifts, you will see gaps in the drywall and they'll go all crazy different directions. That's a real foundation problem. So for foundation-ish stuff, settling and things like that, like a lot of new homes will get little settling cracks and things like that. I'm not too worried about it. But if you have like a legit crack going across the back of the house and you feel like it needs to be addressed, I would get a quote to have it repaired because they're going to have to put piers in and those are really expensive. And then I would tack on a certain percentage to that quote because if I'm going to buy the house and it's going to cost me 20 grand to fix the foundation, well, I'm not going to just take 20 grand off the price. Like I'm taking on all the risk. I have to hire the contractor. I've got to deal with everything. So I want 20K plus money for my time and energy and effort that I'm putting into it. So you got to tax. So let's say it's 20 grand. I might say that that's probably in this case, it could be a 30 or $40,000 issue.
I dig that a lot. I also check out the exterior of older brick houses, and it comes with stair stepping. So
Yep.
it'll go just up and you can tell kind of how like a square wall has shifted, tilted, listed. And that was true indication of a lot of major renovations that we've gone through in my real estate career.
Yeah, definitely. And once again, there's varying degrees too, right? Well, I'm sure you've seen those ones where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
And then there's the other ones where it's like you see a little stair step that goes like 3 bricks and it's a little crack and whatever. Just they call it tuck pointing. Just fill it in.
Yep.
That's fine. But when you
Yep.
start getting those big separations, that's when you know you've got a much bigger problem.
Yeah, we had to raise up a whole foundation. I told my clients, do not buy this house, but it was in it was in Cherry Hills, and it was just stellar. I mean, it had it all going for it, but they're 170 in the hole right now,
Yeah.
and still haven't moved in 7 months later. So you have the repair costs plus your extra mortgage, and you gotta factor in a lot of different aspects when it comes to purchasing a house that you think is going to be an easy fix, and then it turns into, oh my gosh, we have a brand new headache and a brand new baby.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so some people understand that, other people don't. And so what that means is the house is not unsellable, but what it means is the pool of people that are willing to look at it shrinks a lot. So you just
Yeah,
have much fewer people looking at it, which means you've got to give them incentive to buy it, which means you got to sell it for less, which can be painful to the seller, but it's the reality.
yeah. And also
Dan?
note,
Oh.
right here, it looks like you got Colfax running on top. Imagine it's like an Oreo cookie. Your sweet spot is dry gulch, and that's the cream of the crop. But you got the two sides of the cookie is Colfax and Sixth Avenue. So you're gonna have some unflavory, unsavory folks just in your backyard. So you're gonna need to chain up your bike and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Right
it's
there, you can see
it's
the
10 minutes from the stadium too, but
Yeah.
it's also really close to two different light rail stations. So I mean, there's like pros and cons
Right, but
going
but
on with it.
here's the thing on that, and then Julie, I'll open up to you.
Thank you.
It we don't need to when we're doing a CMA, we don't need to speculate on any of that stuff outside of I know that right up on the highway is a big deal. I know I don't want to cross Colfax or Sixth, right? Like outside of that, or I know this pocket for whatever reason is, 30% more, so I can't use that pocket. Outside of that speculation, we actually don't need to make any speculations about, oh, it's close to the light rail, which makes it more valuable. Da, da, da. Guess what? All of these are close to the right light rail. Guess what? All of these are 10 minutes from downtown. All of these are in a tough neighborhood. So we don't need to speculate as to why with any of that. Although we could say, hey, I know your house is worth 500,000. It's only worth 300 because of X, Y, and Z as a general thing, but like we don't need to get that specific or granular with ours because we're pulling comps from right there. So back to what Will was saying, I totally agree. You got a nice little segment here with all these comps. These are all the good ones that you want to use and avoid these ones if you can. And same with down here. I would avoid these ones. Those ones maybe, but these three I would, unless I need them, I'm not going to use them. Julie?
I just wanted to try and go back to the general CMAs as opposed to like a detailed CMA. So if I'm doing these CMAs every week, I'm trying to crank out 5 to 10. So I'm not going to go in depth like that until I, have the client. So if it's somebody on my list, like if I have 50 names on my list, I'm going to pick out 5 to or 10 a week to do. I necessarily haven't been into their house. So that's why I was trying to do more of the simple ones. So
Okay.
is that something that like you're going to share, or is this going to be more like the details?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to pull something else. Are we, generally speaking, are we good on kind of the idea behind how to do a CMA, that kind of idea of just like slowly moving those bookends in until we get a range in the middle somewhere? Okay.
And also reach out to your managing broker. They always are down to help assist you with your CMA career. And they want you to succeed because it helps pay them too. So
Yep.
the more you learn, the more you earn. That's why we're all here.
Yep. Same with the team lead, if you have a team lead or mentors or whatever. So, all right. So I'm going to do this and then I'm going to try to share my screen here. Okay, you guys can see the Excel spreadsheet. Okay.
Yep.
So my first question to you, Julie, is, if you have 50 people, why are you doing 10 a week? You're going to burn through all of them in 5 weeks, and then what? Right? Why
Well,
not do
I can add more people to my list. I'm just
right?
saying that like I guess I know I've been doing a detailed CMA. I just wanted to get some ideas today on the best way to get some out every week to crank them out. And my point is that I'm not in everybody's house, so I can't dig into detail until they're my client.
So just a couple things. First of all, if we're sometimes it takes a lot of time, energy, concentration, effort, pain in the ass to provide value. So one of the things that I think traps that a lot of and Julie, I'm not saying this is you at all. It just kind of sparked this thought, but one of the traps that I see a lot of real estate agents fall into, which is why it's so prominent to sell real estate agent software. Oh, you need this one, know this one, know this one, know this one, know this one, and know this, is because they want to make it easier. There's no easy way to do a good CMA, period. So Jackie has a really big list, so she's touching on a whole lot of people and she's doing it in a very creative way. But I guarantee there's times where she's got it. She said she spent a couple hours when getting ready for a listing appointment to do a legit CMA for somebody. There's no getting around it. That's just the way it is. And so, Julie, I'm not at all saying that you shouldn't be doing it that way. Like if that works for you, great. I think everybody should be doing it the
Well,
way
no,
that
I mean,
it
I
works for
guess
them.
if I have a listing appointment, I will spend 2 to 4
Yeah.
hours. I
Yeah.
drive around the neighborhood, I go to the houses, but to do these touch points, I don't have 50 clients, so I'm working off of my sphere, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to
So
do touch points and give them an idea. And I've been using RPR, and then I try and do RPR with Jackie's. I try merge them together.
okay. So here's how I approach that. So thank you for bringing this up because this is a great question. How do we even get somebody started? So let's say this is what your spreadsheet looks like. You've got Brett. That's all you've got, right? We all start with one line. Um, and by the way, the date, maybe we talk about this offline, but I always put the A at the end. Otherwise, it divides all these numbers out, which is annoying. Anyway, so we've got Brett. Last time I did a CMA was in January 25. Market snapshot. I have this in here. So if you've got RPR or another software that gives them a monthly update that's computer generated, say yes or no. Do you have them set up on that? Here's their address. Okay, all of this information here, I can get off the internet, off of RE Colorado. We know all the square footage, all of that kind of stuff. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call Brett and I'm going to say, hey, Brett, listen, I've been in real estate now for a little while. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, so one thing I've started doing is I've started offering to do a free market analysis for everybody that I know. This is not a ploy to get you to sell or anything like that. I just want to provide value to the people that I know. And not only that, you'd actually be doing a huge favor for me if you'd let me do this market analysis for you. Seriously. The reason that you'd be doing me a favor is because the more of these I do, the better I get at pricing homes. And so I actually could use your help here in by doing this market analysis. Would you be okay if I put together a full comprehensive market analysis for you and send it over to you later tomorrow? Yeah, sure. Just no, I'm not selling. I'm not going anywhere. Oh, I'm not trying to get you to sell. This is just so you can stay up to date with what's going on in your neighborhood. All I'm doing is trying to provide value. Are you good with that? Yeah, I'm good with that. Okay, cool. Can I ask you a few questions about your property? Sure. And so then I'm just going to ask them questions. So I've never been in your property. Can you tell me a little bit about the condition? Have there been any updates that you've done? Oh yeah, we remodeled the kitchen, we did the floors, we did the paint. Anything. What the way I word that question is there anything that you've done to your house that you think adds or detracts value from it? Or detracts. We drove a car through it last week. Okay, that detracts.
I dig
Um,
that. I like that a lot.
what's that?
I like that a lot. You can ask them, hey, can I do an open house? I know it's not for sale, but if you're doing an open house, I got a lot of my leads and a lot of my contacts off of getting off the horse and knocking on the neighbors' doors and
Yeah.
saying, hey, we're having an open house and would love to introduce myself. I'm Will, and here's what I do. Here's I offer a CMA, I offer X, Y, and Z. And you have to follow through with that though. You can't just promise and not deliver. So just know what you promise, have a notepad, write it down. But that's a good way to expand your sphere of influence.
Yeah, and just to keep things going, by the way, 2 weeks from today, that's the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. So I'll talk about that here in just a minute, but we're running out of time. So I just want to get through this really fast. So I'm going to talk to that person and I'm going to say, tell me about your basement. Is your basement finished? Because a lot of times that doesn't show up on public records. Are there conforming bedrooms, non-conforming bedrooms, bathrooms? What's the condition? Do you have a bar? All that kind of stuff. Do you back to open space, a school, a road, power lines? Tell me all the things about your house, and I'm going to make all the notes right here in the general comments or in the upgrades. So now I've got a bunch of information about their house, and I'm going to do the CMA for them based on that information. And then over here, so I've got the 2025 value. So when I need to add 2026, I just insert another column. Whoops, that went to the wrong place, but you get the point. And then I would just put 2026 value. And then you've got a running